guys, hope you're all well. Unfortunately, this is the video I thought I would have been making now, something I wanted to make later in my YouTube career, but unfortunately, due to the global pandemic that's happening and the fact that the UK is effectively in lockdown, it means I can't really get out and film anything for you guys. So I thought, today, let me show you my postcard collection. Now, I know what you're thinking, postcards, it's a bit boring, right? And to you, it might be, but to me, it actually means a lot. Because essentially what I've done over the last few years is collect postcards from every country I've been to. And it gives me a way of like looking back. When I see these postcards, I can look back and think about, oh, how that holiday was, and just brings back good memories. So I thought in today's video, I'll go through each postcard I have and give you like a brief overview of each country I went to on that postcard. Hope you guys enjoy the video. First up, we have a postcard from Croatia. This is actually from Split, which is where I stayed. Split's on the southern coast of Croatia. And when I was in Croatia as well, I spent a day in Dubrovnik, which is about a 2-3 hour drive from Split. Croatia was one of my most favorite holidays ever. I actually went to Croatia as a graduation present to myself a few years ago. And it just has a bit of everything. Good weather, a bit of history. There's loads of Roman buildings all around the country, amazing scenery, and as well as that, it has loads of really good activities for tourists to do, and the people are really nice. And just to make it even better, it's a really cheap country. Well, it was. And on top of that, if you're a Game of Thrones fan like myself, I know the last season was a bit rubbish, but aside from that, if you are a Game of Thrones fan, you have to visit Croatia because a lot of Game of Thrones was filmed in Croatia. Dubrovnik was used as King's Landing for the thing from the second season onwards. So when you walk around there, a lot of places might look familiar to you. So if you haven't visited Croatia already, it should definitely be on your bucket list. So next up, we have Mostar, which I suspect most of you don't know where that is. And it's actually the second largest city in a country called Bosnia and Herzegovina. I went to this place on the same trip as my Croatia trip. I took a day tour there as well. It's a really interesting place. What's really interesting about it is that there's two distinct sides. There's the Christian side and the Muslim side, and they're joined together by this bridge here called the Starry Mosque, which has stood there since the 15th century, I think. Well, it might be 16th century. Unfortunately, it was bombed and damaged during the Bosnian War. However, in recent times, it has been rebuilt back to its former glory. Unfortunately, due to the war itself, a lot of buildings, especially in the Muslim side, still have a lot of bullet holes, a lot of damage, and it's a real surreal experience when you're walking through the city. But yeah, Bosnia, especially the Muslim side, it's a really interesting place to walk through. It's a lot of cobbled streets, a lot of really tightly packed buildings, and it gives you a real Middle Eastern vibe. So I definitely recommend and visit Mostar if you guys are around the region. Another interesting fact to note is that the currency of Bosnia, the mark, can't actually be found elsewhere. You have to go to the country itself to get the currency. Luckily, they also do accept the kuna and euros. Kuna is the Croatian currency. So if you are around the area, don't fret too much if you don't have the right money. So a couple of months after I came back from Croatia and Bosnia, I went to Portugal with my family. We actually stayed in the Algarve, which is in the south of Portugal. But then on one day we took a day trip to Lisbon, which is the capital city of Portugal. There isn't really much to say about Portugal. It's a typical European city. I'd say it's probably the cheaper version of Spain. So nice hot weather, nice beaches and so on. But I don't know, I wasn't really a big fan of Portugal. Thought it was a bit boring if I'm a bit honest. So if you haven't been to Spain before, I'd visit Spain first before you guys visit Portugal. So next up we have Ayia Napa, which is in Cyprus. Ayia Napa, if you guys didn't know, is a massive party hub for youngsters and adults alike. It's typically frequented by tourists found from the ages of 18 to 23, I'd say, probably even 25. Aside from the party side to the island, which is amazing, drinks are super cheap up there. The beaches are so beautiful and golden and sandy, something you don't really get in the UK. And the sea as well, it was so blue. Um, just you don't get that in the UK. The sea's always cold here and it always looks like some weird brownish colour, but there it's amazing to swim in. Other than that, Cyprus has a lot of British expats in there living in it, so there's loads of like British restaurants and British pubs. So if you're feeling a bit homesick, there's always loads of British places to go to around. But other than that, there's not a lot to do in Cyprus. It is quite a small island. It's mainly known for its beaches and party lifestyles. So if that's something you want to do, make sure you go there. So after I came back from Cyprus, I went on a Southeast Asia trip in the same summer with my family. The first country I went to was Singapore. Singapore, it's a weird one because compared to the rest of Southeast Asia, it's very high tech, very business orientated. It's a very modern city for Asian, well, at least for Southeast Asia. The public transport in Singapore is amazing. It's on level with London, I'd say, only a lot more reliable and a lot more punctual. We didn't take a cab the whole time we were there. Even from the airport, we took a subway straight to our hotel. It was really nice, really clean city. The only thing I would say is Singapore is a very, very small place, and you can pretty much see and do everything there is to do within 2 to 3 days. So if you're spending any longer than that in Singapore, you're kind of wasting your time and your money. So from Singapore, we flew straight to Malaysia, specifically to Kuala Lumpur, which is the capital city of Malaysia. It's about a 45-minute flight, super cheap, only about £20-30. So if you're in Singapore, it makes just logical sense to go to Malaysia as well. There's loads of things to do in Malaysia. One particular thing I'd recommend is visiting the Batu Caves. If I can, I'll put a picture up somewhere on the screen. It's a fantastic little temple, really, really colourful steps. There's loads of also wild monkeys about the place. They're not dangerous or anything, but they can be a bit cheeky and try and steal stuff off you. So be careful and be wary of what you have on you. Another thing I would recommend is going up the KL Tower. Because from the KL Tower, it's higher than the Petronas Towers, which is this thing here, and it's what everyone thinks when they think of KL. But yeah, it's higher than that, and it's also a lot cheaper, so you get better views for less price. So from KL, we went to Phuket, which is on the south coast, which is an island off the south coast of Thailand. As you can see, amazing seas and beaches. It's such a quiet and calm place. I'm not really a fan of just sitting on the beach, but I feel like Phuket, I could have just done that for like months on end. It's also really cheap, so we got a really nice like penthouse suite, top floor. So we got a really nice penthouse suite just right by the beach. So every morning I'd wake up and just sit on the balcony and just admire the waves and hear the waves. It was just beautiful. Another thing you can do is go island hopping. You have the option of visiting Phi Islands, which is world renowned. Unfortunately, the time we travelled, Phi Island was closed. It was closed because due to the excess in tourism over recent years, the local tourism boards closed it down to help the island regenerate a bit, because I think a lot of the coral in the area has been damaged. So hopefully over time they'll reopen it and slowly bring back tourism to the area. While we were in Thailand as well, we also visited Bangkok. I wasn't really a big fan of Bangkok. We were only there for about 2 or 3 days, and I just found it a bit boring, to be honest. There was just loads of temples, and there's only so many temples you can visit, right? So next up we have Czech Republic. I stayed in Prague, which is the capital city of Czech Republic. Prague is a really interesting city. It's got a bit of a medieval vibe to it. A lot of the city was built during the Bohemian era of the, I think it was 13th and 14th centuries. And Old Town especially, where we stayed in Airbnb, dates from that area. So there's a lot of cobbled streets, a lot of like big town squares, and Prague Castle is actually officially the largest ancient castle in the world. So definitely would recommend visiting Prague Castle if you visit Prague. The only thing I would say about Prague is, especially in the summer, it's like a big hub for stag do's and stuff. So if you're going with family, maybe try and avoid it in the summer because it can get a bit rowdy at night. So next up we have Norway. Norway is one of my most favourite countries I've visited. This postcard is actually from a little village called Flam. But when I was in Norway, I actually stayed in a city called Bergen, which is the second largest city in Norway. Bergen is a really nice area to stay in because it's close by all the fjords in Norway, which if you didn't know how it looks like, that's how a fjord looks like. There's loads of fjords around Bergen and you can take loads of different like trains and stuff towards the fjords and you can hike around there. Definitely would worth checking out. The views are astonishing. I have no words for it. Like you just have to see it in person. Another thing I'd recommend trying out when you're in those fjords is to visit the Flam Railway, which essentially takes you from about 2,000 meters up high in the fjords all the way down to sea level, and you see everything. So definitely would recommend checking it out. The only bad thing I would say about Norway is that it's a very expensive country. So try and limit costs where you can, or just come with a big budget. So next up we have Amsterdam, which I went in the September 2019. I mean, we all know what Amsterdam is famous for. I don't need to go into more detail about that here. If you don't, then you've just been living under a rock your whole life. Aside from everything that Amsterdam is famous for, it's a really like cute little city with all its canals and stuff, and you can take like cruises along the canals. So definitely worth trying it out if you're in the area. Unfortunately for me, when I went to Amsterdam, it was raining the whole time I was there, so we didn't get to do that. And also consider checking out the Heineken factory, and there's loads of other museums like the Anne Frank Museum and the Rijks Museum or something. I'm probably pronouncing that completely wrong, but there's loads of little museums if that's your kind of vibe. But yeah, Amsterdam's a really nice city and it's really close to London. We drove there for weekends, so it's really easy to visit as well. So if you haven't been already, just go, really. And finally, we have Barbados, which I went to in February. There isn't much for me to say because you guys have already watched my vlogs, right? If you haven't, then you know what? Pause the video right here, click on the link in my description or up there and watch my vlogs because they'll go into way more detail about the country itself. But from an overall point of view, Barbados, really nice country. It's a bit boring though. Like, there isn't much to do. So, not really my thing. So yeah, guys, that's my postcard collection. I know it doesn't even represent half the places I've been to. I'm missing a few and I just haven't bought a few as well. I know this isn't the most interesting of videos for you guys to watch, but in the current circumstances, it's the best I can do. If you do have ideas of other videos I can do at home, then please let me know and I'll be sure to attempt it. But until then, make sure you like, subscribe and share and do all that good stuff. If you haven't already, make sure you check out my Insta and see you guys in the next video.